I think that nothing can beat your food, but I will try to do my best. And I am very sorry that Ken is not here. And when I was visited the gallery of one Polish painter, she asked me, I see that you are interested in this picture of birds in love. And I said to her, no, I don't see the birds in love here. I see Ken and Jan sitting on the branch and discussing where to fly in order to spread the freedom and liberty ideas. Okay, so please give it to Ken. Just Ken and Jan. Okay, so let's start. I am Jan Kubań. I was born in 1959 in Poland, which was under a communist regime, and it was quite a poor country. My mother said that she cut one egg, in order to give half of this egg to me and another half of egg to my father, who was an engineer in the steel factory in Warsaw. So it was my background. Country was really poor, and later I was educated, and I can say that education in the Soviet bloc was quite good, and I was educated quite well. And when I was 10 years old, we moved to the Soviet Union, because my father was an engineer. He was quite good engineer, so he was asked to work in the Soviet Union to make some things in this area. And I was sent to an ordinary school, Russian Soviet school, and I spent there 4 years. And I went back to Poland, and I saw that the economical condition, I can see what could I buy in the shops. I started to see that there is shortages. Okay, before leaving, we can buy easily a lot of things, a lot of stuff. And when I come back from the Soviet Union, where there were lines for buying the food, it happened that in Poland was quite the same. The level of these shortages was not the same in the Soviet Union, because in Soviet Union level was bad. But I saw that we are going down with economy, as a guy who was 14 years old. And later I studied mechanical engineering in Polytechnical School of Warsaw. All the society was involved in thinking and discussing the political issues, because the economy was really declining. In 1981 or 82, I lined for 4 hours just in order to buy 1 liter of milk, it's 1/3 of gallon, and buy half of kilogram of the bread. So it was enormous. And to give you an impression of the level of this decline, so on Christmas, because my mother was a physiotherapist, she dealt with a lot of people who has some problems with vertebral, yes, yes. So he managed to cure an ambassador of Austria, and he made us a gift from Austria. I opened the box, and they were 3 oranges, 1 kilogram of coffee, and 3 tables of chocolate. And I said to my mother, he's so generous, he has offered us such a luxury. Okay, so I was 17 years old. Okay, the history turns, and it happened in 1990s that we overthrown the socialist regime. And my expectation was, now the scientists will deal what was happened in Poland, in the Soviet Union, that we go down absolutely with our economy, that this system, who was promised to be miraculous and he was promised to be for the people, happened to be so hopeless. But nothing happened. No one wanted to explain what happened, what was the reason of all of this mess. And I start to think about all of the things, about the North Korea and South Korea, about China, which was when I was very young, China was very poor, and it was a very close country. I didn't knew pretty nothing about this country, but I knew that there is a communism over there, so socialism, and that they are going down as we did. Okay, so I started to think, and finally I came to the conclusion that I understand everything. So I have written a book, and
Welcome
which
to the
I...
United States.
Sorry?
Welcome to the United States.
Okay, I have written a book, The Physics of Life, because I am an engineer, so I like very much physics, and I gave this title. Okay, so what is required to be a physicist of life, to understand what happens in our societies? So first of all is right motivation. So everybody here, I think you have the right motivation. So if you need to understand what happens in life, just do, because you are very well motivated. Now you have my background was aeronautical engineering, theory of game, and business dealing with, making the business, because after being the scientist, I started my own business when I was 30 years old, and I started to deal with people, and this is the source of real knowledge, to deal with people, to cooperate with them, to be deceived by them, to see that they are devoted to you or they deceive you. And I started to study a lot of different sciences, and what is the most important, that because of my knowledge of languages, I can speak Russian fluently, I can speak English very badly, as you can see, I can speak French. I have an opportunity to read about the same events from the different points of view, and draw the essential, to reject all adjectives, which just make the things very very complicated, but I draw the essential of it. So I read a lot of memoirs and diaries. I read the book of Right Economics of Ludwig von Mises and some Polish writers who wrote about this. I read also about cybernetics, systemic theory, which is not very complicated. It seems that cybernetics, you probably saw the Terminator 2 and you are afraid of cybernetics. It's nothing special, really. It's a science invented by a psychiatrist, American psychiatrist. Thank you very much, Ross Ashby. So you just need to read one book and it's enough. Yes. The most important things, however, is to get rid of your own biases. Biases, it's a term from psychology, that we have some prejudice, we have some stereotyping way of viewing the things. Okay, so if you manage to understand all the biases, there is about 100 of them. But if you study, even in Wikipedia, you will see that it's quite easy to see the things objectively, not from the perspective of your own. And of course you have to meet right people, and one of these right people is a Ken. Ken has arrived to Poland, and he explained to me very easily, in a very clear and very short words, what does it mean the forgery of money. Inflation. Inflation, thank you very much. Because we, the Poles, we are so indoctrinated by the previous government and previous leadership that all the time we think that inflation, it means rise of prices by the producers. The producers are the most important enemies of society. We were so indoctrinated. They are the evil of the society. Okay, so It lasts now about 30 years of the end of the communism, and I didn't saw the explanation how it happens, what was the causes of the socialism, and why socialism was so evil. But couple years ago I saw two films which I advise you to see as well. The first is, the title of this film is The Lesson. It is the experiment made by a professor of history, modern history, here in the United States, and he managed to transform a group of teenagers within 5 days into the group of fighting fascists. It was so easy, and it is very well documented in this film how he did it. It wasn't so sophisticated, and he managed to do this. So my advice is, you should see this film. I have sent all the links, necessary links to Ken. And the second film was, which was also very interesting. It was the title of this film was Critical Mass, and it showed the experiment of your compatriot, Mr. Calhoun. So he put several couples of mice or rats, because this experiment was repeated several times, and he developed in the same way. He put these several couples of rats into the limited ground, and the rats were provided with full of food and drink. So the food was in abundance, and they started to grow, to develop. And when they started to develop, the second generations of rats appeared, and it happened that this second generation of rats behaved in a different way than the first generation of rats. And the third generation of rats behaves at least completely differently. So the first generation rats, they were fighting rats. They fight for the nesting place, they fight for the food, and they fight for, they don't even eat together. They don't want to eat together because they were afraid that the food is not stolen by another rat. In a second generation of rats, they became a little bit friendly and a little bit more social. They started to eat together, but also some kind of abnormal behavior, as far as first generation is concerned, appeared. I mean, some homosexual behavior appeared. So some rats which were rejected by other rats, they started to behave as a homosexual. The third generation of rats observed by Mr. Calhoun was something extraordinary. He named these rats the beautiful one. They take care only about their fur and only to eat and drink, nothing more. They don't even care about reproduce themselves or fight against someone. And the end of this experiment was that the whole society of rats was dead. So the community of rats extinct. And there were two factors: unlimited food and drink and limited territory. I don't know, because in this film, the critical mass, they were told that the main factor was limited territory. But for me, it's unlimited drink and food is a crucial factor, however. Okay, so I saw these two films and I said, I waited 30 years to see such a films. I googled these films and I saw that there is only 11,000 views in the Google. So these films are not known. No one teaches about this. Later, so as well, I fall into two books which I find very, very interesting. So the first one was The Ordinary Life in North Korea. It was written by your compatriot Barbara McCormick, if I am right. But it shows our ordinary life in North Korea, and when I read this book, I saw myself in this country, because it's so similar to Polish condition that I compare myself to the heroes of this book. And the second book was a trapdoor, The Man and the Socialism, wrote by Mr. Fedosiev, who was the chief constructor of radio location installation, military radio location installation. He was one of the best scientists in the Soviet Union, but when he was 60 years old, so quite old, he decided to escape this country, the Soviet Union, and he did it. And after that, he have written this book, The Trapdoor, because he said it's some kind of ratchet. We enter to the socialism, and later the situation develops in some kind of procedure. And I will talk now about this procedure. So, it's about my background, and now we turn to the physics of life. So, in the physics of life, I will pass maybe, Danusia, may you pass this okay. So when I prepared myself to write the book, The Physics of Life, I met Mr. Titler in a Google in a website. He was a Scottish philosopher in 17th century, and he have written that the societies develop in some kind of a cycle, and this cycle starts from bandages and goes to spiritual faith. Then from spiritual faith go to great courage. Then from great courage go to liberty. And from liberty to abundance. From abundance to selfishness. From selfishness to complacency. From complacency to apathy. From apathy to dependence, and from dependence back into bandages. And I said, okay, maybe from the details I can discuss with him. Okay, I would like to discuss with him, but maybe some details are not correct, but I think that this cycle is correct. So later I met the book of your next compatriot, John Golub. He was a soldier and traveler, and he have written the book The Faith of Empires. And he said that he analyzed several empires, the life cycle of empires, and he said that every empire lasts about 250 years, it means 10 generations, and we can show that it goes through 6 stages. First stage, it's the age of pioneers. The second, age of conquest. The third, age of commerce. Fourth, age of affluence. You see, affluence, abundance. Titler wrote about abundance, and Glab is saying about affluence. The age of intellect and the age of decadence. And every age of decadence is very high consumption. There is undisciplined, and overextended military, the conspicuous display of wealth, a massive disparity between rich and poor, desire to live of the bloated state. Am I right? Bloated?
Bloated.
Sorry?
Bloated.
Yes, bloated state. Thank you very much. Obsession with sex. You remember the second generation of rats. So it happens in the human beings as well. What is the most important factor is the basement of the currency, the inflation. debasement of currency. The ancient Rome, they inflated the currency in such extent that the state wouldn't collect the taxes from their own coins. They were forged in such extent. Okay, so it happens, it's normal. Okay, so now let's go to the table of Mr. Fedosiev. He wrote a diagram. So his book is very interesting from 2 points of view. It's divided into two chapters, the main chapters. The first, it's the ordinary life of the scientist, of the top-level scientist, who has to queue, who has to line in the shops in order to buy some food. And he described the life situation, how he talked with the people, how he stopped to talk with the people because the people disappeared suddenly. It was a common practice during the Stalinism, and my elder compatriots said me, okay, you are not afraid because you are young and you didn't met the situation where someone disappeared, someone of relatives of someone who you know. Okay, so Fedosiev, in the second part of his book, he made some scientific approach towards socialism, and he gave the diagram of the development of socialism. So the first stage is a stage of seizing power. The second stage is a phase of consolidating the power. And the third stage is a phase of economic collapse. And the fourth stage is a phase of social discontent. And the last phase is a phase of system decomposition. So the system of transition of the system. Okay, so what he's talking about in this diagram. So every seize of power becomes with big ideas: freedom, equality, fraternity, release from employment. We will provide you the cure for free. You will be provided livable pension, and so on and so on. And the people are hooked by this ideology, and they accept that they will be led because the government knows better how to fulfill your needs. Okay, so you sell your freedom for your wealth, supposed wealth. Now we go to the phase of consolidating power. So the government eliminate the private property. So in the Soviet Union, all the producers were killed. And the state is assuming and claiming that they will produce everything which is necessary. And there is very simple model of this. So nowadays in Poland, our government said that they will collect the garbage from the homes, because till now we organized this by our own. We have signed the contracts with small companies which dealt with collecting the garbage. We paid them, and it was like this. And the government said, okay, it's very expensive. If we, the government, organize the system, you will pay less and will be more, the system will be more efficient. So you have to choose us. Later, instead of saying choose us, they said, okay, we will introduce this law. And they did it. And it happened. They said that they will clean all the villages by themselves. So, you know, they said, you don't want to sign contracts with a small company, so you throw the garbage outside to the street. It's very bad. Okay, it happened, but it wasn't so usual. But it happened sometimes. So now they said, we will clean everything. We will take your garbage and we will clean the streets and so on and so on. When they passed this law, the garbage rests in the streets. They don't clean it. And I am afraid it will be typical situation that they will raise the price, they will raise the price, and suddenly they will say, okay, now take it, take your garbage by yourself. So it's a typical situation for the consolidating the power of the socialist. So they replace the natural mechanism of free market by the mechanism of central planning. We know better, we do the best, we will do in the cheapest way, best way, and so on. You don't know anything. We will do for you everything. And if they replace this mechanism of free market, which gave feedbacks to the producers, the economical collapse starts. So the state producers, they are completely dependent on the government and what the central planners say, and they start produce badly. So what the state is doing? He's paying some subventions to them, and in this the permanent decline of economy, and economy is going down. So in such extent that we have nothing even to buy for as a nutrition. So I don't know, the situation was the same in China probably, and in North Korea the people are even dying from malnutrition. Now in this book Ordinary Life in North Korea, they were written that there is some changes, anthropological changes, that the South Korean are higher, bigger, stronger, and so on and so on. And North Korean have bigger heads, because in biology, when the organism is not eats not enough, he save, so he make economies on the bones, on the muscles, but he have to provide all the supplies to the head. So the head remains big. And now the South Korean, when they can easily distinguish the North Korean who escaped from North Korea by the head, by the yes, by difference, yes. Okay, so it's it can be ridiculous, but it's biology. Okay, then the people start to be discontent. It is the third phase of socialism. The people start to realize that the life before was better than now. Okay, so yes, if they remember. So I have an opportunity to see the situation in Poland when we have our neighbor who was a carpenter, and he said before the war, so before the communists came, it was like this, like that, and so on and so on. The main factor, one of the main factors in Poland was also the Christian church, because it wasn't eliminated in Poland as it was in the Soviet Union. Okay, so we have some counterbalance to the government, and the priests, whether they were very smart or very stupid, they played some role of they explain us. Okay, so I would say that the Christian church helped a lot to overtake the communism in our region. Okay, so we start to be discontent, and we start to talk. In Soviet Union, and I think in North Korea, I am sure, but I don't know what about China, we talked. We just when we traveled in train, we started to talk politics. And in North Korea, you risk to be in prison. Okay, in Poland it wasn't so cruel, but the people are show their discontent. They talk to each other, and suddenly this discontent is entering to the power, to the people of power, because the people of power, the power needs to some people who can carry the orders, so the police and the militaries. But so in the face of economic collapse, there is also the strength of police and militaries. But in the face of social discontent, the low parties of militaries and low parties of police, which are underpaid already, because all the time. So what does it mean to be underpaid? They cannot afford buying the essential things. They start to be discontent as well. So when you are stopped, arrested by the policeman on the lowest level, you manage to escape. You manage to convince him, okay, you are the guy as I, we suffer from the system, and he said, okay, go away. I am not afraid, okay, if no one saw that I arrested you and I let you go, I am not afraid, and go away. And later we go to the phase of system decomposition. So the discontent is rising. So from the very beginning, it enters to the police and the militaries as a private levels. Yes, so from the very low level, and it goes up and up, up and up, and suddenly the power has no power to perform their orders. So the composition begins. And what is very interesting from what I remember, that we as a young people, we were persuaded that the system will not collapse, will never collapse. It is an eternal system. And suddenly, within a couple of years, it started in Czechoslovakia, later it was Hungary, so it was, how you say, suppressed, so oppressed? Suppressed. All this resistance was suppressed. So we saw, even if we start in Poland to do the same, it will end the same. But suddenly in Poland we managed to do something, and we managed to achieve something, and within a couple of months the same situation happened in the Soviet Union. So the collapse was instant, okay? And we saw that the breakdown and end of socialism, and the new cycle began. So we entered the freedom, and from 1990 there was complete economical freedom, and I can say that I was educated in the Soviet times, in the very cruel times, and socialism provides very good experience in life, isn't it? You can say as well, I think. And I started my own business, my free business, when Poland started to be free, and I ran this business successfully. I developed this business for 24 years now, but I see now that the best period was the first 10 years, because the socialist strikes back nowadays, and all the Europe became socialistic. Okay, so Mr. Fedosiev, he has described these phases of development of socialism. It is available on my website. I think that if you Google socialism, Fedosiev, and so on, you will meet. If not, just send me an email and I will provide the right link. And even I made a photocopy of this original table of Fedosiev. But now I would like to add something before this table. Why we are vulnerable to socialism? Why the people, why the empires I told about before, why these empires collapse? If we learn in school the history, we learn about Napoleon, the great victories of Napoleon. We learn about great achievements of ancient Romans. We learn about wars, whatever. We never learn, I don't know, because I never learned the history of collapse of Rome, the history of collapse of ancient Greeks, the history of any kind of collapse. So I think it is a gap. We have to learn about this, and someone have to write the right books about this. So the first attempt was made by Ken, Jonathan Gullible, and it's a very right book, and we should introduce these items into the official program of the schools. But I think that the state is not interested to do this, because they want only to show that state is something very nice for the people. They know how to organize the life, they know what the people needs, and they will supply all of this. So now I would like to say something a little bit what is the background and natural tendency toward the socialism. So I think that the division of the people into takers and makers, now it's understandable, and it's very popular. So there are people who make something for others, and there are people who takes only. And so we are born as the takers, because we are born and we are fed by our moms. So we need a proper education to become makers, and we are not supplied with this education. It's an education, it's a pain education, because it requires to, so the manager or the teacher who teach people how to become maker, he's always saying, you did it wrong, you have to improve this, did it better, train yourself, sacrifice not 15 minutes to do this job, but sacrifice 2 weeks or even a month. Okay, so it's a rather difficult kind of education, and the state wants to did it. So with the people, so any living object is an object who absorbs different kind of resources, and the most general, in the most general view, we absorb matter, energy and information, and we do this actively, and moreover we optimize this acquiring, so we want more resources for less effort. So it is built in us, okay? It's our internal genetical mechanism. We want more for less. So we are very vulnerable, and we very easily accept any kind of ideology which explain that we can take from others. Let's see the Crusades. The Christian Crusades, they were influenced by ideology. You can take from non-believers. Just go there and loot them. Take everything they have because they are not Christian. And the same was with the communism. We will take from the rich because the rich they have and you don't have. So the people accept easily any kind of ideology which explains their greed, and permits them to take from others. So okay, so I think sorry? Yes, I think I said pretty much. The details, if you want to study this issue, a lot of details are already in my website, and just I can link you, and you can read all the details. And now, please, questions. And
So you're saying that the socialist economy eventually collapses?
yes,
It does.
yes.
And do you see the U.S. economy heading in that direction?
You know, I cannot say anything about the United States. What I can advise you just to enter these topics and to get my knowledge, okay? And now you after this you can see by your own eyes. I am, you know, I am second time in the United States, and mainly I lived in the Soviet Union for 4 years. Later I spent a lot of months in France and in Switzerland, and I saw the difference between these two countries. I cannot say whether you are in the way of socialism. Probably yes. Probably yes. And I can say on this to prove it. I had a friend when I was in the Soviet Union. He wasn't a Russian. He was a Tatar. It's a nation within the Soviet Union, within Russia, and he became very rich guy nowadays in Russia. He deals with gold and so on. He's a businessman. And 10 years ago, he came to the United States for the first time, and he went back and we met, and he said, you see, we were educated about the communism in the Soviet Union, but I saw the real communism in the United States. Okay, these words were his words. I cannot judge them, okay? I don't know. I like this country. You are very open guys. Yeah.
I remember calling in high school, listening to my radio and getting ready to Moscow, coming forward from that was communism. And in high school, we often say it is the better system. We don't acknowledge that as students to our teachers. It sounds like a better system. We gave two reasons that it couldn't be. One was corruption. But then on counterbalancing it is that we had to believe that communism had weaknesses in it and didn't reward. When we talk about makers and takers, it was advertised that under a capitalist system of competition, it makes entire countries have the orientation of being takers, and that mechanism is overtaken by a communist system that allocates responsibilities instead of taking it competitively. Comment?
Yeah, so you know, when I was 11 years old, we have a lesson about the future of the Soviet Union, and the teacher said to us that the communism it will meant that you will produce whatever you want, so you will work if you want, and you will have everything. And one of my classmates, he asked her, but listen, I would like to have everything, and I will not want to work at all. Okay, so even the small kids knew that it's impossible. So I think that we require really good education to show the youngsters the source of the wealth. It's a labor, it's a work, it's a creativity, it's new invention.
What I'm trying to say, though, as high school students, and it goes back a long years that the Soviets were very strong. As students, we felt we understood communism, and it was the mantra was each according to his need,
Yes,
but each according to ability. So if you had ability, that didn't seem to top out.
it was a socialism slogan. Communism, you work at,
Socialism was each according to the work,
yes,
and then
yes, communism was
it never happened.
uh,
No communism.
paradise. It was paradise. It's a dream.
Yes. Just to, there is a video on a YouTube. It's by Yuri Bezmenyev. Bezmenyev means something like
No name.
you know, it's like I'm not sure those cover last name what he's using, but you know, he's an ex-KGB agent. He escaped to the United States in 1984. And you know, what's interesting to me is that you know what you mentioned with the other guy, quoting.
Yeah.
There are also there are four stages of taking over the United States. Again, 1984, 30 years ago. So I mean, you can imagine. I mean, with all the technology and say spying and everything. I mean, it's much of that. But there are four stages. First was decolonization. So you really start, you know, messing up with all the values, morals, religion, sex, whatever. Then there is a crisis. Then there is a normalization. You know, and
Control crisis. Control crisis.
maybe whatever, they just make the system collapse.
Yeah.
And then there is so-called normalization.
Yeah.
You know, I experienced myself when I was growing up because, you know, nobody was allowed to stand out from the crowd. I mean, everything used to be normalized, you know. Do you want to add something to that? And the
No,
next
it's
one was the total disintegration. So, I mean, they have four stages, but the ultimate collapse of the United States can happen in this way. I'm not sure where we are right now. It seems to me we are in that normalized
So in this table, in one of the phases, it's a rise of investigation. So I think that yeah, NSA, yeah. So we named it the state is making the controlled crises in order to investigate how the society will react. Okay.
What? How do you see what's happening in Europe and in Poland and even Russia today?
So in Russia, I don't know because I am not very interested in Russia for the time being. I don't know why. We think that Putin is quite okay, but the Russians are claiming that not okay. I don't want to enter this subject. But about Europe, the socialist strikes back. So you know, we are on our road to socialism. In Poland, I had a lecture, the investigation of the economical development in Poland. So as I said, 10 first years was the free market and free economy and typical capitalism, fighting capitalism and so on. But later there is too much law nowadays, everything is controlled. So if you want to be successful, you have to work in the domains that are not controlled by the state. So I mean, we are writing the software. It's for the time being, it's not controlled. We are quite free, but the construction, everything is very controlled. The new law, and you know, the subvention. The people now they think that they cannot make a business without governmental money, and this is very dangerous because government, the state officials, decide who will develop his own business. This is very bad.
All right, well, we're going to have to wrap it up now because I see results coming out and I'm getting impatient with that. I want to leave you with a couple of comments I think which are important to Jan's presentation. One is that a lot of times Americans have different definitions of what socialism, which has been used a lot tonight, and I think that if
So I gave, can I, so it's my definition, okay? It is sophisticated strategy to gain power over the masses and exploit them until driving them into the ground. So I talked with Emil and we have the same experience. We have discovered as a young people that the government is not our government, that these people are acting against us, against let's say people. And the first testimony of that there is that they are not our, that they don't belong to ours, begins when ordinary people start to tell they did, they and they. So if you will see the frequency and the use of word they, be aware. Sorry? Oh, it's in Polish. It's in Polish, but none. But there is a website. I am continuously making that translation. So if you are interested, just send me an email and I will send everything, every material I have to study.
Tracy, may I say a word? I would like to say one thing to all the people from other nations. Most people come to America, they only come to the large cities or to the universities. They don't get into the rural areas where they meet the people. There is where today you will find the real Americans that believe in the founding principles of this country. And so I hope that you get an opportunity to see the real people in the rural parts
Yes,
of America.
okay, yeah. Yeah. Yeah, so rural people are raised in the very hard conditions. Yeah, more hard. I appreciate the French peasants who opened my eyes as well.
Good.
Yeah.
Yeah, who are despised by Parisians.
Yeah. Yes.
Well,
I was married to a French
Yes. Ah.
We share.